Hi, welcome to Nini's Nest. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I wish that you would go and do that right away so that other kids can find my stories and hear great stories like we're going to read today. So please like this story at the end and also subscribe to Nini's Nest and choose your notifications so that you get all of the notifications about each story. I read 3 times a week, so there are many others that you can go back and look for about Curious George, which is what we're reading today. Curious George Feeds the Animals by Margaret and H.A. Rye. And we see the animal on the front cover that he's feeding, and it's the mother kangaroo and the baby. It looks like peanuts. That's what Curious George likes. And here's the man with the yellow hat who's always in the story with Curious George. And we will begin on page 1. Oh, well, actually it says page 3, but they had some other pages before it. This is George. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. One day, George went to the zoo with his friend, the man with a yellow hat. A new rainforest exhibit was opening, and they wanted to be the first ones inside. But when they got to the new exhibit, the doors were closed. "We'll have to come back later, George," the man said. "Why don't we visit the other animals while we wait?" First, they stopped to watch a zookeeper feed the seals. When he tossed little fish in the air, the seals jumped up to catch them. Then they barked for more. It looked like fun to feed the animals. Down here it tells what times you can feed them: 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. "Would you like something to eat too, George?" asked the man with the yellow hat, and he bought a snack for them to share. When they stopped to see the crocodile, George remembered how the zookeeper had fed fish to the seals. He was curious. Would the crocodile like something to eat? And if you look right here, you see he probably bought the peanuts here that he has in this bag. George tossed him a treat, and the crocodile snapped it out of the air. Next, they visited the koalas. George thought the koalas were cute. Here was a friendly one. She was curious too. She wanted to see what George was eating, so he held out his hand to share. And right here it says, "Don't feed the animals." George shared his treats with an elephant and a baby kangaroo. George was making lots of new friends at the zoo. The lion was already eating, but the hippopotamus tried a snack. Next, he gave a treat to an ostrich. So here's the lion, the kangaroo, and the hippopotamus, and the ostrich. And we're going to see this one maybe. Then George saw the giraffes. What fun to feed a giraffe. Giraffes usually have their heads up high in the trees, but George could see these giraffes would be easy to feed. But as soon as he held out his hand, a zookeeper came running. The zookeeper looked angry. Was he angry with George? George didn't know, and he didn't want to stay to find out, so he slipped away. And the giraffes were happy to help. Oh my. When it says he slipped away, he slipped right down the giraffe's neck. But where did George go? Well, the sign says this way to the monkeys. So that makes sense that he would go there. He was trying his best to hide, but little monkeys can't stay still for long. When George wiggled, the zookeeper was waiting. "I see you," he said. Just then another zookeeper hurried by. "Come quick," she yelled. "Someone saw the parrot." The first zookeeper led George to a bench. This parrot from our new exhibit escaped, and I must help find it, he explained. He told George to wait for him there, and before he left, he said, "Don't you know you're not supposed to feed the animals? The wrong food might make them sick." And George looks like he's being pretty obedient. He's got his hands in his lap, and he's listening to the zookeeper. George felt awful. He didn't know he wasn't supposed to feed the animals. He didn't want to make them sick. George was looking at the treat in his hand when all of a sudden, a big bird swooped down and snatched it right up. Now, George knew he wasn't supposed to feed the animals, but this one had helped himself. A zookeeper passing by was happy to see George. "You found the parrot," she said. "We've been looking for this bird all day." When she saw George's snack, she said, "This isn't the best thing to feed a parrot, but a little won't hurt. Would you like to help me put him back where he belongs?" George was glad to help after all the trouble he had caused, and together they went back to the exhibit. And look what the exhibit is, the one that they came to see, the rainforest. "There's our problem," said the zookeeper, pointing to a hole in the netting. As the zookeepers discussed how to fix it, George had an idea. So see the hole right here? He climbed up like only a monkey can, and when he reached the hole, he tied the netting back together. Meanwhile, the first zookeeper returned. "Catch that naughty monkey," he yelled. "He was feeding the animals." "But that little monkey found the parrot," another zookeeper told him. "And look, he fixed the netting. Now we can open the exhibit." When George came down, all the zookeepers cheered. Finally, the celebration began and the doors were opened. The man with the yellow hat was there, and he and George got to be the first ones inside. As George walked in, the zookeepers thanked him for all his help. "Please visit any time," they said. George couldn't wait to come back and see his friends, but next time he'd remember, unless you're a zookeeper, don't feed the animals. I'm so glad they got to go to their special place they wanted to see, the rainforest, and that's where the bird came from, or that area at least. Thanks for joining me for this story. If you like this story about Curious George, would you please give it a thumbs up? I'll see you soon.